the City Service Oil Company and your local City Service distributor, offering you a full range of quality City Service products, presents 11th Hour Report, a complete roundup of news, sports, and weather with Fred Blackman.
Good evening, everybody. The President holds a news conference and speaks out on Cuba. Strike printers get support, and Governor Sanford speaks to a joint session of the North Carolina General Assembly. Those are the headlines, the details after this message.
Your City Service sales message goes here.
President Kennedy held a news conference today and issued a stern warning to the Soviet Union and a stern answer to critics of his administration's Cuban policies. He warned the Kremlin that if the United States again discovers Soviet offensive missiles in Cuba, the greatest crisis in world history would be unleashed. The president conceded that some Soviet missiles might possibly be hidden in Cuba, but that they would have to be placed on launching pads to be fired, and the United States would spot them. In answering his critics on Capitol Hill, the chief executive said some members of Congress have passed on rumors of a Soviet buildup in Cuba, but have refused to say where they got such information. He said decisions are made on hard intelligence, not on rumors that are not substantiated. CIA Chief John McCone talked Cuba again today on Capitol Hill to Senate investigators. He again repeated that the administration considers the Soviet overall Cuba buildup as small. While opinions differed widely in Washington and across the nation, Chairman John Stennis repeated that he didn't agree there was a lessened military threat there.
No general withdrawals that we know anything about, and maybe some rotation, replacements, something of that kind.
Stennis reminded that he said he took a serious view, was asked if he changed his mind.
Absolutely not. The continuing possibilities of developments there over a period of time is tremendous. Of course, it's a matter of interpretation of just why they are continuing this immense military strength there.
Your Governor Nelson Rockefeller says he is deeply concerned about a Cuba-based military threat to Latin America. Rockefeller says he agrees with President Kennedy that the present communist force in Cuba by itself apparently poses no threat to the United States. But he told newsmen in Washington he knows of no Latin American nation that has a force equal to that now in Cuba. Russia has told the United States that the new French-West German Friendship Pact might lead to Bond's possession of nuclear weapons. The Soviet ambassador to Washington informed the State Department his government feels that the de Gaulle-Adenauer agreement poses a military threat to the Soviet Union. The West German Chancellor Konrad Adenauer has begun one of the most difficult jobs of his career, trying to quiet criticism of the new treaty between Germany and France. In Adenauer's policy statement before his parliament, he tried to show that his new alliance with General de Gaulle does not mean turning Germany's back on Britain and the United States. However, German opposition to the treaty is strong, and even Adenauer's Vice Chancellor Ludwig Erhard is against the pact. Adenauer supporters insist that the treaty with France would not change West German foreign policy. 6 months of frustrating partial successes ended today when the Navy fired a Polaris A-3 missile some 1,600 miles downrange from Cape Canaveral, and its nose cone landed on target. The snub-nosed missile is described as the mightiest long-range striking arm ever built for a submarine. Members of the International Typographical Union have voted overwhelmingly to increase their contributions to support the newspaper strikes in New York and Cleveland. Both strikes are in their third month, and the strike benefit fund was getting rather low. When the fund fell below $500,000, 1.5% of the printer's gross earnings were taken automatically. The assessment of an extra 3% would provide a total of some $3 million a month to pay the striking printers. Early reports show the printers strongly in favor of the additional assessment. Along with their pension plan and other levies, the printers will now turn 10% of their earnings over to the union. Back with news of the region and state after this message. Of interest to North Carolinians, the House Agriculture Committee ignored administration protests today and tentatively approved a multi-million-dollar subsidy for the cotton industry. Committee Chairman Congressman Harold Cooley of North Carolina said the committee agreed to approve a 4-year program of subsidies at a cost of an estimated $382 million each year. The program would start this year. In its first joint session, the North Carolina General Assembly heard Governor Terry Sanford ask for a $1 minimum wage for the state. His hour-long speech mostly related accomplishments, but contained a few requests, including the construction of a building for the library and Hall of History.
Now, or at any time, a governor's program. Rather, I intend to say to you that there is much to be done, that the opportunities are here as never before, and to pledge myself to work with you in every possible way as we set out to achieve the good things that are here for us if we will only reach out and seek them.
He requested money for highways, mental institutions, and education, and then
there's some other things that we need to do, specific things. We need to redistrict the Senate. It's just that simple. The Constitution requires it, so we need to get on with the job. We need to concern ourselves with our insurance laws. North Carolina is known as a state where insurance laws are honest and honestly administered. But we need some tightening up, and the Commissioner will have recommendations to make to you. We need to tighten up the election laws, particularly as they apply to absentee ballots. Our election laws have worked well, but there have been some exceptions. We ought to close those loopholes. We need to find a way to draw to activity on school boards the very best possible people in the state.
Reaction to his talk was mostly along party lines, but some Democrats said they were disappointed that he did not set out a more specific program. Actually, much of his program will be covered in tomorrow's budget message. Representative George Ozell introduced a bill calling for seat belts in all new cars beginning next January. The widow of a Negro man allegedly murdered by a prominent Gastonia physician charged today that someone has tampered with the written transcript taken in the first trial. Mrs. Elizabeth Patton claimed the transcript showed she said things she never said. Dr. Harry D. Riddle is charged with the fatal stabbing of Leonard Patton in March of 1962. He claimed self-defense. A first trial ended in a hung jury. At Winston-Salem, a Forsyth County Superior Court jury deliberated less than 2 hours today before convicting Marion Crawford of the murder of an 8-year-old girl. No recommendation for mercy was made, making the sentence the mandatory death penalty. A 3-day session of the annual Municipal Recreation Directors Conference opened on the UNC campus today. Dr. Paul F. Douglas, political science professor at Rollins College, delivered the keynote speech. Joe Davidson, Burlington Recreation Director, also spoke to the group, as will others during the session. The conference is sponsored jointly by the Municipal Division of the North Carolina Recreation Society, the North Carolina Recreation Commission, and the UNC Recreation Curriculum. Well, the tallest lighthouse in the nation will soon get its spring cleaning. Officials in Raleigh say the Hatteras Light will be cleaned, painted, and repaired in the immediate future. The cost of the spring cleaning will be about $2,400. In sports, basketball scores first of all. Sophomore sensation Billy Cunningham burned the nets for 33 points at Chapel Hill tonight to lead the University of North Carolina to an 82-68 ACC victory over Maryland. Cunningham also hauled in 13 rebounds in pacing the win. A capacity crowd of 5,000 witnessed the game. Phil Carlson led Maryland scoring with 16. Only one other score right now. Lenore Ryan 73, Pfeiffer 54. 5 golfers are tied for the lead after first-round action in the $35,000 Phoenix Open tournament. Gary Player, Jack Nicklaus, and Jay Hebert each fired a 5-under par 67 to hold a one-stroke lead. Arnold Palmer, Dr. Kerry Middlecoff, Jimmy Clark, Bob Harris, Tom Aaron, and Julius Boros, a group at 68. Defending champion Palmer had an erratic round, picking up 6 birdies and an eagle while posting 4 bogeys. Player had 2 eagles on his round. Dale Morey of Morganton, North Carolina, held to his steady pace at the annual Dixie Amateur Golf Tournament at Miami. where he posted a 74 today for a 217 total for 3 rounds. He now leads the field by 1 stroke. Slugging outfielder Harmon Killebrew of the Minnesota Twins accepted 1963 terms today to become the highest paid player in the club's history. Killebrew will receive between $40,000 and $45,000. Last season, he hit 48 home runs and drove in 162 runs. And something a little unusual in coaching ranks, President Kennedy's physical fitness advisor, football coach Bud Wilkinson, can stay on at the University of Oklahoma as long as he so desires. Oklahoma Regents voted today to renew Wilkinson's contract as coach and athletic director, and said Wilkinson will have the privilege of nominating a successor if and when he decides to give up coaching. Wilkinson's salary is an estimated $22,000 a year. Australia's great tennis player Rod Laver is joining the growing list of foreign athletes making tours of the U.S. Laver, last year the world's hottest amateur, makes his American debut as a professional tomorrow night at Boston on a weekend program that includes stops at Philadelphia Saturday night and New York Sunday night. As an amateur, Laver won a tennis Grand Slam last year, taking the U.S., French, British, and Australian titles to become the first man to accomplish that feat since Don Budge in 1938. And that's our look at news and sports. Back with the weather in just a moment. The forecast for Durham Raleigh now, considerable cloudiness and turning colder tonight with a predicted low of 33 degrees. Tomorrow, variable cloudiness and colder. Our high tomorrow should be in the mid-40s. Today's high 63 degrees, low this morning 33, presently 51 degrees in the Durham Raleigh area. The relative humidity stands at 85%. And that for this evening completes our look at news, sports, and the weather. Thank you for joining us. Hope you have a nice day tomorrow. Good night.
This has been 11th Hour Report, a roundup of late news, sports,